I'm here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
The whole fleet of them, what's on the ASA? My God.
Unidentified.
The acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Anomalous.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
Since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1 and 2,000 reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Series 2, Episode 3 of the Unidentified Anomalous podcast. I'm Digby Furno. Joining me, as always, my wonderful co-host Tom Cortex Zero and Paul. And also, as a little Brucey bonus, as we call it over here in the UK, we have Jason Gilmay joining us from UAP Studies podcast. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Fantastic.
Well, doing very good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
It's an absolute pleasure to be with you again, because I actually spoke to you and your previous podcast host must be 7 months ago when I literally just first started.
Season one. Yeah.
Well, that was a completely different show, and now Tom's come on board and we're sort of doing our own thing, but it's so great to have you guys come on. I must say that when I first spoke to you guys, it gave me the confidence boost that I needed, and you said to me that there was going to be a turning point in about 6 months' time when it would all come true and it would all come together. Yeah. And here we are, 6 months down the line. We've had Avi Loeb on the show. We've had Michael P. Masters on the show. We've had all these wonderful names come on the show, and it really has. It's 6 months on now, and it really has come together. Yeah, exactly. So you're absolutely right, man.
Yeah. I try not to lie, but yeah, if you're consistent, man, you'll see the progress. And you don't know where you'll end up. That's a beautiful thing about it, is you never know what's going to happen. No. But consistency is what's going to make the universe say, all right, you deserve this, right? So yeah, good on you, man. I'm proud of you guys. Like, you've come a long way in a short time. Yeah.
And this is episode 4 of this week. I mean, we're saying this is series 2, episode 3, but you know, all the other ones are sort of special editions that we did this week as part of hashtag UFO Twitter week, which has been
crazy week.
Really great week.
Our busiest ever, right?
Yeah, it's been
that's
been
good. That's good.
Full on. It's been great fun.
Oh, it's super good, super good. It's been an extraordinary journey thus far. I am reminded every day and thankful to have met Digby and Paul. They treat me the way I want to be treated as a work partner and as a friend, and I couldn't be in a better place. Couldn't be in a better place.
Yeah,
I want to reach up and hug you right now, buddy.
There it is.
And here we have an extra. Michael.
Oh, hey.
How are you doing?
What's up,
we
man?
were told just before the show that you're feeling slightly under the weather at the moment.
I am enjoying my first ride on the COVID Express, and it's every bit as fun as everybody's told me it would be.
Yeah, I got off that train a couple months ago, man. It's weird what it does to your emotions. It's really strange. Like,
I could cry at any moment.
Right, like it makes you like super depressed, and like the body aches and everything. And I didn't even have a fever. That's the weirdest part. I never had a fever.
My partner doesn't have a fever right now. She's definitely gotten, there's no question, but she has zero fever. She's lying down, and I had it first, and then I was exiled to the room that you see me in. I've not been able to leave this room for a few days, and then she got sick. Yeah, and then she got sick, and now I still somehow exiled. I think we were like, it also makes you really stupid, right? You can't think straight. You find yourself doing all sorts of illogical shit. But then I had this thought the other night where, like, I was laying in bed thinking, God damn, I just had the dumbest thought. And I realized there's no way of knowing whether when you think, wow, I just had a stupid thought, there's no way of knowing whether you caught yourself being momentarily dumb or if you had a momentary, brief insight into how stupid you always are. Like, maybe you just had a moment of clarity, and
The freak out was already there. Yeah.
there's no way of knowing. There's literally no way of knowing which one it is. So
Wait a
I
minute.
think that
Have I
COVID makes you
always been
smarter.
stupid? Yeah.
Post-nut clarity of the medulla oblongata.
Yeah.
So-
Well put.
My
So,
wife
yeah,
was
but
right
I'm
the
here.
whole time. Yeah.
I get the whole isolation thing, though. My wife went back to the UK with the kids to see her mum and her sister last week. So I am now a week and a half into being here on my own. It's the first time being in another country on my own.
Oh wow!
Sort of out the way of everything in Morocco. And I swear to God, I've been in this room for about a week and a half. I only go out to eat, and then I come back. And I'm
You called me
slowly
yesterday.
going insane.
He called me
His
yesterday.
productivity's through the roof, man. Yeah.
That is true. I'm
The show
driving home
has
from
been
work,
good.
and he calls me, and I'm like, "Hey, man, what's up?" He's like, "I'm bored."
Is that your best
Out
English
of
accent?
nowhere.
I am bored.
It's just
Tom's
like,
been watching too much Mary Poppins.
Bored in Morocco, man. That's
I'm not watching Mary Poppins.
You're
That's
in
my
Morocco.
biggest-
Why are you in
yeah.
Morocco?
I decided to leave the Western world behind me because I decided that it was all falling apart and I didn't want to be
Cheers to
around to
that.
watch it happen.
I'll see you
Truly
soon.
not a bad place to go, actually, Morocco. Yeah, I was actually worried, Digby, because I have a habit which I've since then tried to correct. But a couple of years ago, I got caught talking to my customers in a British accent that they had because I didn't subconsciously know that I was mimicking the way they were talking. Until my
Explain the
coworkers
COVID.
are like, yeah, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, you're speaking Cockney with this, hi man, okay, you're gonna sign here. Yeah, sign there, yeah, right. All right. You put here's a penny, yeah. You put
that's
this in your
good.
garage, do you? And I was like, what am I doing? And I realized that I'm just mimicking the person across from me. So I've been really, really working on it. Try not to copy people's English accent because
You'll be all over the place today because we got I got a southern accent.
Yeah.
We've got.
I was gonna
Oh,
see kind
very
of
as
a
British.
Michael Moore look going on to you today, Michael.
Me?
Yeah, you look
I
like,
look like Michael Moore.
Yeah, Michael Moore. 'Cause he always wears that hat
Oh,
with the
dear.
The
glasses.
director of Bowling for
Those
Columbine.
are
Yeah,
fighting
Like
words
a
right there.
younger, prettier version.
Damn it.
Don't think you're ready to film a
Pedal it
documentary.
back now. Jesus Christ.
Oh, dear, it's all going wrong. Jason's new podcast host will be short-lived after this
Yeah,
episode.
that's it.
We're having talk
Michael
after this.
suddenly leaves UAP Studies.
He's going to be typing his resignation letter in the midst of the show. So if you hear the keys going like really hard, you'll know why.
Right, guys, it's a pleasure to have you all here. It's a busy show. There's a lot of people on it, but it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Before we go into this week's news and sort of review what's been going on this week, Tom, I'm going to throw it over to you because I believe you had somewhat of an experience last
Oh,
time.
wait, are we
my
recording?
friend. Yeah, no, we're live.
baby.
We're live. I had, let me just go ahead. Let me just go ahead and break the charm. Here, I have no idea what we're doing. I have
Just go with the flow.
clue.
Yeah, just
Okay,
go
I'm here
with the
for it.
flow.
Let's do it. Like, yeah, I heard you had an experience, Tom.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
So last night, I'm gonna try to take this as seriously as I can. No, so I even put it out on Twitter, X. I took part in a DMT ritual last night, ceremony. It's the second time I've done it, but this time I went for 3 hits instead of 2, and I experienced the complete dissolution of my individuality last night. Ego death. I don't even know where to begin. I guess I'll bring up the one thing that I seem to be remembering the most clearly. I ended up when everything hit me, I described it to Digby as, somebody shot me out of a gun into God's mouth. Like, it was just the weirdest sensation. It was very different than the first time. And I ended up in this kind of almost like a plain Jane room that felt like it was meant for like a meeting, but it was but like the ceiling was like infinitely tall. Like I couldn't see where the ceiling ended. It was really strange. And there were all these, we'll call them beings, entities, whatever they were, that were around the table. And what's really strange is that, so hovering over the table was this like really beautiful purple white, like geometric diamond. And it looked like it was like really far away. But when I would reach my hand out, all of a sudden my hand was behind it. But then when I would move my hand back this way, it looked like it was off in the distance again. So I'm like doing all this. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And this, all right, this is where you really got to be like, okay, what? The beings that were around me, I felt like I was hearing their higher, like, hyperdimensional selves, not seeing it, hearing it. There was this vibration that was going on, and like my mind was like, oh, that's their higher self. It was like synesthesia, like if you smell a color. And that's another thing I keep remembering is that there was this. The closest thing I can even just like relate it to is green, but it's not green. But it's like if all colors have sort of like a feeling to them, right? If you see red, it's like hot. Green, it's like earthy and that type of deal. So this had like that earthy feel, like green, life, the environment sort of, but it wasn't green. It was a color I had never seen, and there was a lot of that going on. And the other thing that really caught me off guard that didn't happen as much the first time. I was able to see it in front of me, behind me, and all around me all at once, but it didn't feel unnatural. That's the strangest thing. It's like in our everyday waking life, all of us see through both of our eyes in a three-dimensional space that is front-facing. We cannot see through the back of our heads or on the sides or anything like that. Obviously, we have peripheral vision, but it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. So when you have someone that experiences that, you would think that'd be quite jarring, but it wasn't. It felt normal. It was really strange. The ego death part, though, I had felt the beginning of it the first time I had done this, but it never like followed through. There was no breakthrough, as they call it. This time, though, I felt it, and I find it fascinating that, like, how is it possible that me, a being with individuality as the basis of my existence, I am me. It has always been that way ever since I came out of the womb, ever since I was born. I know nothing other than that. How is it possible that I was actually able to experience the sensation of becoming everything around me and all at once? How? So that's what I'm left with. And there's so much more. I don't want to take up like the whole show with this. I'm going to do a video about it, but
I think
the phenomenon was present though. And because they were like, I was being shown previous UFO sightings that I had in my life, but it's like, imagine someone taking one of your memories and then upscaling it to like 100 UHD, like beyond 8K, and then hooking it up to your brain and putting you in the middle of it like it's a virtual reality experience. Like, hey, remember when this happened? Well, now we're going to watch it, but we're going to watch it in the highest resolution that you have ever seen that you didn't even know existed because you are a human. But when you come here, it's different. They were showing me my most recent sighting. The triangle when I was a child, that was there. Like it, but the whole time there were these like ethereal, wavy, wispy, like tissue beings that were around me that looked like they were made out of like if you were to like take chalk and like smack it against a wall like real hard and it got dusty.
I think
it's so hard to describe.
Did you have any recall that was anything other than what you had already recalled yourself? Like, did you see anything extra in those visions?
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of the two lights you saw on the street. I'm wondering if you remember more of them.
Well, what was weird about that one, and I told Digby this in our first phone call this morning, is that like when I was shown this, they took. So my sighting, this happened a few weeks ago. I was driving home from work, and I saw basically like a scene from Close Encounters, like in front of me. There were these two red orbs of light that were racing ahead of me on the street that were only like 7 feet above the road. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? What is going on here? Like, and I made a post about it. I made a mock-up with Midjourney and Photoshop to try to show people what I had seen. God bless AI for that in the least. But when they showed it, and I say this intelligence that was with me yesterday, like when they showed this to me again, it didn't end the same way because in real life, I had tried to reach for my cell phone and this thing just blinked out. And I mean, like it wasn't like a blur. It wasn't like it folded in on itself. No, it just gone. Like it was like somebody shut it off. It was very strange. I'd never seen anything like that before. But this time they showed it to me as the two objects merged into this like plasma tetrahedron geometrical thing. I can't even describe it. And it was just like pulsating and doing all these different things. And then it shot like straight up into infinity, which is not what I saw in real life. And I'm like, are you showing me what it actually did that my eyes didn't pick up?
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of my theory, is like whatever this intelligence is, it was showing me what it actually did, but from their perspective, maybe.
I love the whole 3D vision, sort of surround vision that you're talking about, and of course that really makes sense as well. Because if you do have the ability to sort of ascend to another higher plane of existence during these experiences, as which I've heard a number of times from multiple different people, then you wouldn't be looking through eyes, would you? You'd be experiencing and sensing everything that
Correct.
was around you.
You're
so
on point.
that to me exactly makes sense. And how do you have the ability to even imagine how that would be perceived by your brain as the three-dimensional linear object that we are now? That, I mean, I'm trying to think of it, I'm trying to comprehend it, and I can't. Because
have we all done DMT here
real.
before? Is it, or can we get the show of hands? Like, have we all done DMT?
I haven't. No,
I have done DMT.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. Can
so
I ask
what was
about
your experience like?
Well, I wanted to ask first. I will tell you about my experience. But I wanted to ask about one thing you said. You called it a DMT ritual. Can you tell us a little bit about the context?
Yeah. So I'm friends with a shaman that every couple of months, when I'm feeling like, like super blue, or just like there's just something that's like really bothering me, but I can't quite put my finger on it, I go to him, we talk, and then he performs ritual blessings over me, of various kinds that they emanate from some of what he does comes from Native American tradition, and there's some other things that actually come from Europe. So I had been speaking to him about some of the things that were bothering me lately, like bad habits, not being able to focus. I'm very ADD, and I'm trying to get work done and trying to be like the best version of myself possible at all times. And like my body wasn't feeling good, so I'm like, maybe this is something spiritual, or it's like an energy thing that we just don't understand. Because every time I go to see this guy, I feel so much better. I'm like, all right, let me just have a chat with him. And I told him that I intended to go under hypnotherapy with Digby's wife, Katie, because that's what she does as her practice, as a means of like maybe, shutting certain things off in my brain that I'm like, hey, let's try this just to see what happens. I've never gone under hypnosis before, and I'm very open to it. And he's like, well, before you do that, he's like, I have a suggestion. And I'm like, sure. He's like, why don't we do, ceremonial ritual that he developed this. He's been doing it for 20 something years. He showed me the testimonials from certain individuals just to make me feel a little bit more at ease. And that's when he brings up the DMT thing. And I'm like, that's okay. Cause I was like, I have done it before. He's like, how much did you do? Blah, blah, blah. Did you experience ego death? Like, he wanted to know if I had the breakthrough, all those types of things. And I was like, no, I didn't do that the first time. I was like, but I feel drawn to it because now it would be 5 days ago. I had a dream that I went to see him and did a DMT ritual. So like, that's weird because I didn't know.
That is weird. Yeah.
To me. So I'm like, all right, this feels like an indication that I need to go do this. I was feeling drawn to it. So I went and did it. So he, I laid down on a table, essentially. He's chanting over me. There's certain scents that he'll sprinkle into the air to create different like chemical reactions in your brain and different like visual responses when your eyes are closed and such. There's certain like instruments that he has, like there's this bell that he hits too, but he does it like all around my head, and it creates this weird like frequency response when the sounds bounce off the inside of the bell. So it like the pitches are changing as he's moving. It's almost like the Doppler effect essentially, but it's really relaxing. And then after all of that was said and done, drank some water, He asked me to meditate for a little while, so I did that, and just on my own. He came back in, and then I just went for it. That's how it went.
Awesome.
It was
Sounds
really
like a good
beautiful,
experience.
honestly.
I mean,
It
I've
was-
never heard
it was
anybody talk about
fantastic.
a awful DMT experience. I've never heard anybody talk about an awful DMT experience. And mine
Right.
certainly wasn't. I didn't mind in a much less ceremonious context. I was in grad school and I just smoked a shit ton of DMT in my living room with my friends, and I saw
Don't
the
do drugs,
Hindu,
kids. Don't do
I
drugs.
saw the Hindu
That
god
was my
Ganesh.
first
Like,
time.
don't do drugs.
You saw Ganesh?
I swear to God, I was sitting there in my living room, and I had no idea how much to do. It was just the sort of yellow crystalline DMT, and I packed a bunch of it into a pipe on top of some cannabis, and I hit it as hard as I could, and
40 hits later.
the world pixelated and turned into stained glass, and then the god Ganesh appeared right in front of me. This beautiful crystalline head of Ganesha just materialized in front of me, and I was like, "Oh, hi, Ganesh!" Like, wonderful. It felt like wonderful of you to visit me. Thank you so much for being here. And the head rotated, but every time it rotated, a new face of Ganesh would appear, and it was benevolent, and it smiled upon me. And after I, sat there for about 4 minutes, just being in the presence of Ganesh, it dissolved and went away, and I felt wonderful.
Amazing.
You know what Ganesh represents, right? Removing obstacles and difficulties.
Yeah, and he's got a benevolence, and he's a sort of gift giving god, and he's friendly and a little playful. I mean, he's an elephant. If you've ever been, I've actually been to India and wandered into an elephant in the middle of the jungle, and that experience helps you understand what Ganesh is, because they're extremely intelligent, and like they know who you are. Like, you walk up an elephant and you're like, oh Jesus Christ, an elephant, and it's just like, oh hey human.
Yeah. They're really, really interesting creatures.
Yeah,
Right.
they're big sweethearts. I mean, I guess unless you piss them off and then they just stomp you. But no, it was a great experience. But yours sounds more profound. I mean, you went into it with a sort of like you were prepared in a certain way. You brought your sort of like existential anxieties and difficulties to the experience. And I was just like, when my friends and somebody was like literally 30 minutes before we did it, somebody was like, I have scored DMT, and I'm like Googling DMT. Okay, yeah, I'll smoke it. Let's do it.
So you really didn't know what you were getting into.
I mean, I knew what the like cultural conception of DMT was, but I had to look up stuff like, here's the medicines I'm on. Am I going to have an aneurysm and die, and things like. I mean, I'm
because you have
actually fairly smart about some of my drug use at the point.
I think we should put a disclaimer in here. Just briefly.
Don't try this at
about
home.
drug use. Do not try this at home.
Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't
Yeah.
do
There's your
drugs.
podcast. You can say whatever you want about drugs. You invited me on. I'm
We like to
Michael
joke
Moore
around
today.
Just
on our
like, I'm
podcast.
waiting for somebody to clip this and just use it against us. But I think DMT is one of those things. I mean, I've never done it. I wouldn't be against trying it because I believe that our bodies produce, our mind produces.
Yeah, I mean, you do it all the
DMT
time.
anyway.
Your brain does it. Yeah.
So you're just elevating that. But please, whatever you do, anybody listening, don't go down a dark alley and go ask some random person in a trench coat if they've got any DMT.
No, don't.
This was a spiritual sacrament for me because that's the type of person that I've developed into. Like, I believe that I have a soul. I'm not a Christian. I was raised Catholic, but I don't adhere to the Abrahamic Judaic idea of God. I believe that there's like a consciousness field that we're all connected to that's non-local. That's what my next video is on, is non-local consciousness and how it explains basically all psi phenomenon, like remote viewing, precog, shared dreams. So I have like a framework to like what I believe and lean towards, but while at the same time I call myself a spiritual agnostic, because at the end of the day I also recognize that from my perspective down here as a human, I can only speculate and guess and try to reach certain conclusions to the best of my ability, but I cannot answer any of these questions definitively until I die. Truthfully, I really can't. Like, I can't sit here and be like, oh yeah, I know there's this and that. I'm fairly certain of certain things, but as far as their nature, what they represent, I am stuck here with the human perspective like everybody else. That's why I also leave room for interpretation. I'm just a very open-minded person. I've had several major paranormal UFO experiences, things that have been following me my entire life. I have been into these subjects since before I could read. So there's always been this attachment to it for some reason, which now that I'm older, I find to be very strange and think there's something to that I don't quite understand yet, but I'm looking for it. So, I respect other people's beliefs, religions, creeds, whatever. For me, it's like I'm on the journey trying to figure it out. And I can only see so much of the path in front of me. It's like low visibility. But every time I take another step, another door opens and I find another answer that comes with like another question. And I think that's kind of the point, right? Like maybe it's not about the destination, right? It's like our podcast. Maybe it's just about the journey and not necessarily where we're going to end up. Like, let's just enjoy it for what it is.
Who knows? Right. So let's move on from your DMT experience and let's go straight over to this week's news. There's been a few things in the news this week. Well, in our circles anyway, not on the mainstream media news, clearly. But anyway, let's get into that.
Beyond the Mundane.
Beyond the Mundane is our news segment because there's nothing mundane about the news that we cover. And it's been a bit of a good one actually this week. I think we've sort of left behind the whistleblowers and everything like that for a little while till we wait till some of them come forward. But there's some other stories starting to make their way through, certainly in the UFO Twitter world anyway. So we're going to start with this little clip that I've pulled off from a gentleman called Professor Simon Holland. He's an English guy living in France, and he's got a massive following. I think he's got like 111,000 followers on his YouTube channel. He's great. He looks like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. And he's coming on our show on Tuesday. Well, we're filming with him on Tuesday, so that episode will be out.
It's like a Muppet version of Doc Brown. Yeah, he's great.
Yes, quite. I think he's brilliant. So I'm just going to play this quick little clip now, and we can discuss it further afterwards.
Evidence of ET? How, why, where, and when is all this being funded? Where's the proof? They found modulation. They found a signal. Now, first of all, they found a planet buzzing with RF energy. My source tells me they've resolved some signals. He's telling me that they found discernible, unique information encoded in the global ET signal. What is it, says I? Decoding what they have found is a big part of this project. What he was prepared to say is their pictures, their data. What exactly alien ET pictures would look like is really fascinating.
Right. So what Professor Holland is talking about here is SETI. So can everybody remember SETI at home? The screensaver that we used to have on our computer that was supposedly decoding data. Well, about 10, 15 years ago, they announced that they found a signal that they didn't know what it was. It wasn't massive news, but they had found something. What it turns out now is that they've managed to isolate some of the signals from the whole signal, and they realized that some of it's data and some of it's pictures. So as he was saying in that video, they isolated the global signal. So that's from this other planet. If you were an alien on SETI Alpha 5 or wherever, and you heard radio frequencies coming from Earth, you would hear all TV channels, radio stations, possibly Wi-Fi, all this lot, all mixed into one. It would be, like a bowl of spaghetti. But what he's saying is from his contact, they've managed to isolate some of these signals into bare data and images, and that they are now in the process of decoding it. In other parts of the video that he goes into, he starts talking about the funding, and this is really interesting. So his contact that he has at SETI knows this. He's part of the financial department, fundraising department. And SETI apparently, according to Professor Holland, has just been granted 93 billion euros from the European Commission, from the European government, to further SETI around the world. 93 billion euros.
Wow.
That should tell you something, right?
Wow. How much was the
Yeah.
Hubble telescope?
For how long?
Or
Like
the James
normally
Webb
there's
telescope? How much was that?
I'll
I have
find
no
out.
idea. I was about to say, Tom, get on the interweb.
I'm usually Jamie, like on Joe Rogan. That's usually my
So
role.
the general idea, I think, behind this was the
10
fact
billion.
that they need to extend their reach, right? So everybody thinks of these telescopes, telescopes or receivers as being these massive satellite dishes, right? Like we see in Contact and everything like that. But they're not. They're fields of poles with wires around them. That's what actually collects these radio frequencies. But the world is a globe, and as it turns, you lose that signal, and then you don't get it until the world turns back around the other way. So what they actually need to get a coherent signal for long enough to actually receive all the data, or more data, the better, obviously. They need to have these set up in key positions all around the world, and they also need to have a secure connection between all of them so that the data can be received, continuously.
Right.
So they invested 93, or they are going to invest 93 billion euros in this.
So
That's
is that
nearly
all
9
for,
times the cost of James Webb.
Wow.
is that all for the antenna telescopes, or is it
It's
like
for
to,
SETI.
just
to
for
globalize
to
it.
do with it? Okay.
It's to basically
Look,
create
we'll find
a
out more on
machine
Tuesday.
that'll
Yeah.
basically make it so that it turns the Earth essentially into a giant radio telescope, right? Like you have
Yeah.
them probably all on a very specific axis, and it gives us like a 360-degree situation on one
That's
network.
a lot of money. That's a huge amount of money for that. It's really
But
nice.
it brings a valid point that what if disclosure, instead of saying, look, they're here because we're too afraid to admit that they're in our house, we admit like, oh, wow, techno signatures from other star systems. Wow, they're out there. Yeah, no, duh. But we're not the first species to ever experience this. I mean, we like to think it's a unique human experience. It's the first time we catch on. But think about how many billions of times that has happened to other civilizations where they clue in at the mass amount of civilizations that live amongst them, and how that must blow our minds to realize that, all our fighting within our planet is really stupid. Our future's out there. And I think it's great that they're investing that money. I don't think it's great necessarily that during these fragile times that we're investing that much into alien life that's not helping our lives here on Earth. Was it Einstein that said, we keep looking for intelligent lives everywhere else, we still haven't found any here on our planet?
Yes,
right? Which is true. I mean, that's what we do. We prioritize wrong. But think about how amazing that is, that, we might hear from entities that we'll never see ever, because they've echoed through time and space and civilizations that are gone, but we could catch their radio signals or their Instagram posts once we know how to, convert that information to actual pictures for us. But wow, like what a huge step.
Imagine decoding this data and actually getting an image decoded that we can actually see.
It'll be the Brady Bunch, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The sad thing is that, as we know from the movie Contact, if they catch our first radio signal, we get Hitler at the
I wouldn't
Olympic
even know what
Games.
they were looking at, though, to be fair.
No,
and we may not know what we're looking at either. It's just that if this is true, I mean, guys, the timing on all of these different things, it's becoming glaringly obvious that, at least to me, that we're being readied and conditioned for something. I mean, Digby and I and Paul have had discussions outside of the show in much greater detail about certain coincidences and synchronicities and these similar threads that we keep finding all over the place.
Almost daily. It's like every day
Yeah,
it's
like
a new
we're
thing.
finding new stuff every day. 3-body problem. Like we were just talking about it just on our last show. Like Digby, why not? I'll bring it up. So I don't, and again, no spoilers, but
good, because I haven't seen it yet.
it's fantastic.
Oh, you need to.
That's
It's great.
That's the only thing I'll say, is that it's brilliant. But
And also, while Tom's bringing up whatever it is he's bringing up, all we're saying here is that Hollywood has a way of, reflecting what's going on in the world. And I think we can all agree that Hollywood in the past has been used almost as a part of disclosure. You know, they drip feed information to us so that we're not. But I mean, so the bottom image here is the logo for the organization in Three Body Problem. Yeah. And above it is the logo for the Soul Foundation.
But hold on, Digby.
Well, they both have circles in them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Unless you'd like to present it from your end.
No, I haven't got the image ready. But
okay, so now this is where things are going to get a little weird. Okay, there's two. So Digby in Morocco was having quite a bit of difficulty with his internet. So he's like, you know what? How about I get Starlink? But you're not technically allowed to have it. So what Digby had to do is he had to travel back to the UK to pick it up.
I
All right.
got weird looks at customs. What is this?
Oh yeah. Now
dish?
this is I will say you're not going to see this on any other show because this is very specific to us and Digby. But all right, get ready for this. So I'll show you the first image. This is
Photoshop.
Starlink. When they give you Starlink, there is this diagram that they give you
on the router.
That
it's literally printed on the router.
Right. It shows you it's like the path of your satellite, right?
I guess. Have you got the image?
Oh, I'm just making sure. I'm just seeing where I put it.
My guess is that it's 3 dots that look like they all have their own orbit. So I'm guessing the center dot is the sun. I'm guessing that one of the dots is Earth, and I'm probably guessing that the other one is Mars because it's Starlink, so it's SpaceX. Is my feeling on it anyway. But anyway, while we're waiting for Tom to bring that up, basically we saw the synchronicity between Soul and Three Body Problem. We thought, well, that's just a bit interesting. And I'm not saying there's any connection. I'm not crazy enough.
No, well, this is about to get weird as hell. Let's be honest, because when you showed this to me, I was like, wait.
But then you have you ever been in that situation where you sort of start seeing the same thing over and over again in different places?
Yeah, I get that.
So I started seeing this. And Tom, have you found the image yet?
Yeah, I don't know why all of a sudden I opened my downloads folder and it's like moving very slowly for some reason.
Anyway, so
go on.
Well, so there is this diagram on the Starlink satellite. I can see if I can get it into. So can you see that there?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
you can bring it a little closer so you can see the detail.
So, but if I turn it that way around, and you forget about that bit there,
it's really
you've got a circle within a circle, just like the other 2 diagrams. And the weird thing is that dot there and that dot there and one other part of it also perfectly line up with both of the other images. So I put all 3 on top of each other, and they all sort of slotted in on top of each other perfectly. I was like,
I gotta be honest,
weird.
this is really strange. Like, I've never had this happen before. Why is it taking so long?
It's just one of those synchronicities that we're seeing in life. But I think people are talking about synchronicities a lot more recently. And you've got to wonder with something like Three Body Problem. Three Body Problem came to my attention as it did by Tom's, because Lou Elizondo said months ago, there is something in this and there is a truth in this. You should pay close attention to it. And if Lou says something like that, people tend to take note and look at it. And I won't go into too much detail for you, Jason, because I don't want to ruin it for you, but it is a great show. But, you look at it and you realize, there's synchronicities going on here, and you have to wonder, do they do things to make us subconsciously aware of what's going on in the background so that the normies don't run for the hills? There you go.
Oh, yeah.
That's Digby's diagram on his Starlink. Dude. When you overlay the Three Body Problem logo on it.
We're gonna need
that's a little weird, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything to it, and I was just playing around.
It's weird.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty.
It's weird.
Yeah,
guys,
because you guys are gonna hate me.
When Lou brought up Three Body Problem the first time,
I'm not seeing it.
I'm not
seeing it. It's circles on circles. But but that's my whole role. Like that's me. That's why Jason lets me even talk to him. I'm like the dude who just doesn't get it. But I do see that there are circles on circles, and when you put circles on circles, there's more than one circle present. And I get that, but I think what I do understand is the synchronicity thing, because the synchronicity is when your mind starts attributing meaning to similarities out in the world. I mean,
I get that.
The guy who wrote the book that made synchronicities a thing is Carl Jung, and he calls them non-causal, conjunctions of meaning, where it's like one thing didn't cause the other, but they sort of collide in a way in our mind that gives them meaning, and we're seeing patterns there. And that doesn't mean that we're just like, we're just drawing lines that don't exist. The lines do exist in meaningful ways. And I think that like the theme that emerges between this is that like we're like the soul foundation and the three body problem and the Starlink system are all part of like a kind of mythology, a current mythology that's growing around the UAP subject that we're all, it's sort of emerging, and we're seeing, we're all putting it together. I think the problem for me arises when we start assuming or even thinking that like there's some coordinated effort behind it, that Hollywood is somehow being used to like prep us for disclosure. Because I guarantee, dude, if you started telling people in Hollywood like what was going on, they would tell everybody immediately, because they would make money off of it. You get those people who don't keep secrets. That's their job, is to not keep secrets. But I do get the emotional, the sort of ethos of these synchronicities. I do get that.
Yeah, we're not saying it's necessarily even coordinated. It's just that like the way the pieces came together, I'm like, well, that's awfully strange. And I like the way that Diana Pasolka kind of talks about synchronicities, because it's like the way I look at it. I feel like it's like a function of reality that so data exists in one form or another in the universe, and it's this weird, it's almost like I don't want to say a glitch, because that's not the right word for it, but it's almost like just this weird mechanism of the universe that happens. Like, for instance, when my best friend passed away years ago, 3 days after that happened, I was sitting in the parking lot at my new job that he actually helped me get, God bless him. And I'm sitting there on my lunch break, and I look up, and he didn't have a very common last name. And the license plate in front of me on the vehicle was his last name. Like things like that, where I'm just like,
it's a fantastic synchronicity. Yeah.
Kidding me? Right. And then there's just other things that have happened. Like he has visited me in dreams and has kind of said things almost like symbolically. And then like later in the week, that would like, I've had instances of uncontrolled precog that have been very specific too. So it's like, I feel like these are just all functions of the universe that we just don't understand yet. But that's where this non-local consciousness thing comes in. Because if we're down here like little radios, right, and there's a field of consciousness out somewhere in a construct or a dimension, for lack of a better term, that is outside of like our regular three-dimensional time space, we're literally receiving information that's from outside the bubble. So it's like, imagine, I always say the snow globe, but I kind of like my new analogy. So imagine there is a high-rise building. It's like 100 floors. There's a guy on one of the floors, and he's in a room with no windows, and all he has is a cell phone. But that cell phone is connected to a drone that is flying and buzzing around the building. The cell phone is a filter of the information that's coming from outside the building, and now all of a sudden you have a much broader view of the reality around you, despite your locale, because it's non-local. It's being sent from a dimension that is outside of yours. It has a broader view. This is really brilliantly explained too in the Mothman prophecies. It's like, wow, why does this thing keep showing up right before things happen? And the one character goes, it has a higher perspective. It's maybe its view of time and space isn't linear like ours. Maybe it's able to access certain things that we can't.
Well,
just a theory, though.
You've seen Arrival?
Yeah.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Incredible movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually rewatched it yesterday. As I said, I've got a lot of time on my hands at the moment, so I rewatched it last night. And I loved the movie when I first saw it, but I haven't seen it for ages, so basically forgot the entire plot of it. And it's the way that, you know, in their language they communicate, and it's non-linear, you know, and she starts seeing her present and her future all at once. And if you have the ability to connect beyond our dimension into a higher dimension, and that dimension is non-linear, then all of this stuff that we're talking about and seeing, and you're saying about non-local consciousness, all of a sudden starts to make sense. And time is a human concept, really. I mean, it depends who you speak to. I mean, we've had Roy Herbert on the show who will blow your mind about time, and then we had Avi Loeb on the show on Tuesday that was talking about time as well, and it blows your mind, because we just can't comprehend it. We don't have the tools in our head, or very few of us do.
St. Augustine said that time, I know exactly what it is until I start thinking about it and trying to explain it, and then I have no clue.
That's great. That makes so much sense.
All we know is there's an arrow. It seems to move in one direction. That's all. It's a flow. That's the thing we always come back
for us,
to.
absolutely. And I agree with that, Michael. Absolutely. It's for us, it feels linear. It feels like it's going in one direction. You can't go back. But if you live in a dimension that is different, that you can manipulate things, and we're talking about synchronicity. I was thinking about what you guys were saying. The movie, I think, was called Signs with Mel Gibson, where the aliens take over.
One of my favorites.
But this synchronicity happens at the end, where he realizes why there's glasses of water all over the house, why his wife said swing away when she died, was all for years later when he would put this all together in line. In that perfect moment, the universe may work like that too, that places certain things, synchronicity for you to pick up on. Exactly. Nikola Tesla said everything came from another source. He didn't come up with it. He would tamper with it, but the answer came from somewhere else. And look at what we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now if it wasn't for him, right?
No, and imagine what we'd be doing. Imagine what we'd be doing if anybody actually listened to him and implemented all the rest of the stuff.
Exactly.
Our technology would be completely
Socrates
different.
was the same way. He said that he got all of his great ideas from a voice that just came to him from outside the space. So I did my PhD in a department that was really like strong in philosophy of physics. I'm not a physicist, but I know something about philosophy of physics. And I remember sitting down with our department chair one time, and he was telling me about just some of these crazy physics experiments that they do and how they relate to time. And I'll explain this. There's no way to really explain like high physics concepts in normal language. So this is wrong. You know, physicists will say this is just like baby talk, but I'll get the basic idea. Is you can set up these quantum physics experiments where measuring the position or action of a particle changes its behavior, right? This double slit experiment. Like if you're not looking at it, not measuring where it goes, it'll go through it'll act like a particle, or like a wave. If you start measuring what it's doing, it'll collapse the wave function. It'll become a particle. So you can do these experiments where if you set up a measurement device that measures its behavior, but you set it up so that the device will immediately destroy the information without anybody ever being able to do anything with it, the particle will not collapse its wave function, even though it's sort of being measured. It's not exactly like that, but this is a basic idea. If you set it up so that it measures it and stores that information and makes it available to you 20 years from now, it will still collapse the wave function and act like a particle, because it knows sort of knows that you're going to eventually
it's conscious. It's
have it. Yeah. I mean, it sort of behaves that way, and the universe seems to sort of know whether in the future you're going to do a certain thing or whether you won't do a certain thing. It's super
almost like a ripple effect.
That's incredible,
right? Yeah.
That's cool. Who's seen
the coolest things I've ever heard.
I
totally understand what you said, because I've been into quantum physics for a very long time. Like I always call it, it's like quantum potentiality and superpositioning and things of that sort. Another reason why people should go and watch some of the movies that are on Netflix. But anyways, without saying too much, there were these new experiments. Oh my God, I can't remember. It might have been at CERN, one of these particle colliders. They said that there was a potential reason to believe that the future can actually affect the past. That like maybe an action taken by a particle is like you said, like
No
it's like in
question.
response
Yeah,
to something
absolutely.
that would happen later on. That's remarkable. And that
This
what's the key component here? What's missing? What's the one thing that we truly do not understand? Consciousness. That's it. I think that's the key. Like I'm no scientist, I'm no physicist, but I like to think that I'm at least well read on these things and have a decent grasp over the basic concepts. Because the minute you claim you understand quantum physics, you have already failed, right? Like that's what everybody says.
And if you're talking to Jack Savaretti, he'd definitely tell you don't know quantum physics.
Right, exactly.
Oh, don't
God
don't
bless
let
him,
me
right?
talk about that.
You
dude.
schmuck.
there is like consciousness is clearly like this missing element here that we like. This is why I'm really into the work of Bernardo Kastrup and Donald Hoffman, because I like that they're thinking outside of the box on this, because it's like, well, what else are we supposed to do, right? Like this is why materialism doesn't work for me, because it actually doesn't properly explain all of the different experiences that a person can have, like in higher states of consciousness, like doing DMT, like I did, like those types of things. It doesn't have a model that allows those things to come in and actually make sense. What his idea of idealism, God knows if that's right, but I think it's a good step in the right direction to trying to figure this all out. Like, why is it that I can picture an apple in my head? This is how I'm opening my next YouTube video. It's a little thought experiment. I'm going to ask the viewer to imagine a pear. Just imagine it, right? Now, imagine what it feels like. Imagine the smell, the texture, the taste, and all that. And I'm like, isn't that amazing that you can just sit there and do that, even though the object isn't there? Like I can see it, but you're not seeing it with your eyes. I can taste it, but I'm not tasting it with my tongue. Like, that's remarkable that we have the ability to do that, and we do it every day.
Materialist naturalism has, I mean, it's really, I can say this with like some degree of authority, that the materialist naturalism has made literally zero progress in being able to explain how sort of unconscious bare material systems can have anything like awareness or experience. I mean, just we've been working on this paradigm for 250 years, and we've made literally zero progress in explaining that. So it's something's got to give at some point. And I think you're right. Yeah.
Tom,
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that.
Oh, I've got a dog trying to jump on my lap. While we are on this subject, and you mentioned CERN, do you want to go into our next little news story?
Great segue. I was just thinking the same thing. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll even, I have a little image to present, and maybe Michael will actually, out of all of us here, really understand what we're looking at potentially. This is fascinating. This is one of my favorite stories of the entire week. So what the hell are we looking at here? Well, scientists at CERN have discovered something invisible inside a particle accelerator that can change the path of particles and cause issues for their experiments. This invisible thing exists in a space that needs 4 dimensions to be fully understood, because it involves more than just moving left, right, up, or down. It's caused by a phenomenon called resonance, which is when 2 things start to move in sync because they influence each other, like how a tuning fork can make another one vibrate. In particle accelerators, which are machines that use magnets to move and speed up particles, resonance can happen because the magnets aren't perfect. This can mess up the path of the particles. Normally, scientists describe the movement of particles with just 2 dimensions, but to really understand and fix this problem, they need to think in 4 dimensions. The team, including physicist Giuliano Franchetti and others from CERN, used special equipment to track the particles in thousands of experiments. They found out exactly how the particles were moving in unexpected ways because of the resonance. This discovery matches what they thought would happen based on their calculations and computer models. Now, they're working on a new theory to better understand and control how particles move in these situations, which could help improve future experiments with particle accelerators. And their findings were published in a scientific journal called Nature Physics. I love the name of the article. Physicists capture elusive 4D ghost in CERN particle accelerator. Like, if that doesn't grab your attention, and that's from sciencealert.com. But it's again, like, you don't have to be a physicist or a scientist to kind of go, whoa, at what you're hearing there. There are higher dimensions. Like, I think science is starting to really kind of come to that conclusion that the 3-dimensional world is not where reality stops. Like, there's there's much more going on around us. And this is why I'm going to bring this up, because I bring it up all the time and I love it. I'm a big fan of the work of John Keel, and he always talked about the super spectrum. Human beings see this much of the visible light spectrum, and he believes that potentially things like cryptids, the Mothman, UFOs, things of that sort, that a lot of people have reported experiencing and encountering really honest, decent, credible witnesses, that maybe they come from some other dimension or construct in the universe, and that's what he termed it, the super spectrum. And at the end of the day, humans only know so much, right? Like, we could just be wrong on everything. We've built up, in many situations, basic frameworks for scientific models and theories that later on down the line, they essentially had to detonate because it was all bunk at the end of the day. It didn't make any sense. We've gotten lucky in certain situations. Well, maybe not lucky, but we've had brilliant people like, Albert Einstein predicted gravity waves decades ago, and then we finally detected them, right? But I really, truly feel that consciousness, there's more to that story, and that there's a lot more going on around us that meets the eye. And that because the brain is essentially a filter for consciousness, I think filtration theory is likely very accurate, that we see what we see and experience in reality the way that we do because our brain has evolved and developed in such a way that it makes it suitable for us to experience these things without like a data overload. That's why we can't see gamma. That's why we can't see infrared, because, well, it would be too much. And it's like, well, that sounds like somebody designed it. Like, I know that's kind of nuts, but it sounds constructed almost.
Just to interrupt, one of the weird things, though, is that I get the whole, we don't see the whole visible light spectrum. Yeah, so that there could be something literally moving in front of us and we wouldn't be able to see it, right? I get the idea of that. What I don't understand is just because our eyes don't get to see the visible spectrum, which means that we could be missing something, it doesn't stop our senses. That's not connected to our senses or our feeling, our touch and everything like that.
But
so that's where it sort of messes with my head and goes, I can understand that I can't possibly see everything, but if there was something there, I should be able to feel it, right?
I was going to say, for me to be able to wrap my head around what you guys are describing, it's very simple because I try to dumb it down so I can explain it to myself like a 7-year-old, just like Richard Freeman said you should, right? But this is how I reason it. The brain is basically your receptor of you. Basically, we're in the dark right now. All of us, our brains are in the dark. We can't see shit. We can't hear shit. We need to rely on our senses. Now, our senses are only relevant to what we need them to do to survive. Exactly. Now we are exceeding our knowledge past our necessity to know. Do you understand? Because we don't inhabit those layers. Now, we are physical in this realm, but we're limited, like you mentioned, the light spectrum, what we could hear, what we could feel, taste, touch. Like, imagine if you could smell what a dog smells. Reality would be way different for you than it is for me, right? If you could, some animals taste way better than us, or could, they'll use sonic or, what's it called? Sonar for their vision. They can see things better than we can with our own eyes. Fish see better than we do because when we came out of the ocean, our eyes had to adapt to this climate. And like you mentioned, we're very limited. So all our limited abilities that we have is just because that's everything the brain needs to survive in this realm, in this dimension. It does not need the other stuff. But now we're becoming intelligent, where we're realizing that the other dimensions exist, and we know we don't belong there, but we want to know. And I think that's what the cryptids, ghosts, when we're talking UFOs, there's a bigger picture, and we only have just a few pieces of this massive collage of a puzzle. So it's very interesting
on this too. Jason, I've been thinking about, in the making of my new video, I'm like, all right, if this super spectrum exists, right? It's like, well, what could allow them to interact with our reality, right? Like, how does it become visible, or if we feel it, you sense something in the room. I was thinking about that pretty heavily over like the last month, and just to rattle off a few, it's like dimensional thin spots, anomalous phenomena might exploit like weird quantum effects that happen to manifest or interact with our dimension, like entanglement, superposition, like I was talking about earlier. There's electromagnetic spectrum anomalies, consciousness resonance, the fact that we don't understand consciousness at all. It could be existing in that construct, temporal spatial distortions, energy fluctuations and transfers, something called
Was it?
harmonic vibrational matching, and then technological gateways. Like we could be witnessing something that's utilizing technology that's making us think one thing, but it's actually doing another. I mean, the
Jesus,
list goes
technology
on.
How much
enhances
caffeine
stuff.
have you had today? Jesus.
You guys remember that story from John Alexander talking about in Vietnam when they were first inventing the infrared night vision goggles? They
Yeah.
had used them, and
Yeah.
they basically opened the entire spectrum of infrared, and all the pilots were freaking out because they were seeing all these crazy things like flying demons and spaceships and people, whatever. It was crazy, so they had to tone it down to like, okay, we're going to limit it to just this little spectrum. But
Who
technology is
brought
going
that
to
story
enhance
out?
that. I want to say
I-
John
I-
Alexander, but I could be wrong about that.
I saw a video, and I'll just show you quickly what she showed in the video, but it opened up my mind to this phenomenon, exactly what we're talking about. Let's say this is a thief, and that square box is it is basically a safe, right? To that thief being a two-dimensional character, that safe is locked. There's no, he can't get access to it. But me being a 3D character, I could actually come pick out the money. He would have no idea how I did that because my 3D realm cannot compute in his 2D dimension. The higher you go up in dimensions, so if we're talking, other dimensional beings, okay, but from what level? Because if it's just a level above, okay, maybe we could handle that. But if it's like 7 levels above, good freaking luck. We're not going to catch on to that anytime soon. So, that's the fun part about all this is like saying, okay, well, what falls within, maybe we'll know more about cryptids than we will about, non-human intelligence, because maybe we'll solve that fast. Because now you're playing against an intelligence that's smarter than you. And if it doesn't want to be known, it knows all your tricks. It knows what light spectrum you see, what you can hear, what you can touch, taste, and feel. So it operates outside those boundaries, but it's there the whole time. You just don't know it because it's past your ability to see it.
We have all sorts of perceptual glitches too. I mean, there are these. Anybody ever read Peter Watts, the sci-fi novelist?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He's a biologist. He's actually an evolutionary biologist, but he writes sci-fi on the side, and he exploits a lot of these little perceptual glitches that we have in his novels, like the fact that if something moves in your field of vision while your eyes are moving between one spot and another, your brain won't pick up on it at all. So like you can if a lamp happened to teleport across the room while your eyes were moving, your brain would just like totally ignore it. So he has these creatures that are just super fucking fast and wait until your eyes move, and then they're right in front of you. You don't even see them, right? So there are tons of perceptual glitches like that. I mean, there's
I had toddlers for a while, Michael.
eye.
I know what you're talking about.
Really fast toddlers.
Yeah.
But there's like a blind spot in the human eye. There's all sorts of stuff that like
there's all kinds of stuff.
Makes sense that he wrote the name of his one book, Blind Sight.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book too. Yeah,
Oh,
he gives an evolutionary history of vampires in that book that is just like totally plausible and
really good.
He's a
perfect
brilliant
sense
guy.
In space, having vampires, like they're amazing in space. But like, one of the things I love it. It was so good.
It's true. I mean, it's super smart. Yeah, it's not. It's not
so-
silly.
so
Like, you think it'd be
Brilliant.
silly vampires in space, but it's not.
But one of the
It's so
interesting
good.
things about the phenomena I always found crazy is like we all know this stuff. Like we know, our evolution, our as well as we can, and what we can see and feel, and we know us really well. It doesn't explain like, so with all of these reported experiences like abductions and soil samples and things like that, it's like these are things that they would probably freaking know for thousands of years already. Why do we still have reports today of abductees are like, okay, they're taking skin samples and different different types of things that just are really strange to me.
I'll
In
give you my
2024. Yeah, I'd love to hear
It's
it.
all theater. It is all anything that we have observed or know or seen or experienced of any of these phenomenon. If these phenomena are caused by a massively, vastly more intelligent, more advanced technological group, everything that we've ever experienced has been meant to be experienced for some purpose. It is all perception
theory.
management. Now, I know that sounds like crazy sort of psyops intel stuff. But I think that's exactly what it is. It's very implausible to me that like you would just catch them unaware that a UFO would zoom past you and not know that you were going to be there. If it zoomed past you, it was either okay with you seeing it or you were meant to. So, and there's no way of knowing whether it's just pure theater or whether it's actually good, depiction of the
We have a
technology
really
that they
good.
have.
Well, you guys might know Friends. She was on a few weeks ago or last week, I believe, or whatever. I'm losing track of time, but she was talking about the same thing. Like she was saying, and I thought her analogy was brilliant. Like she had brought up, that they're not what they appear to be, and you could see through them almost like a costume. She goes, it's very much like if you go to Disney World and you see a person dressed up as Mickey Mouse. You can look at it and know it's not Mickey Mouse, but the kids are looking at it going, "Oh my God, it's Mickey Mouse!" Like
It
it's
was
the
it was
real
a
thing.
good
It was
point
a
she
great
made, right?
analogy. Oh, it was brilliant. I'm like going,
You know
wow,
what this
it's all a show. I'm
Michael,
like going, yeah,
you just
makes a lot
made
of
me
sense.
think of something that I think a lot of you guys will be very, very familiar with. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I am wrong. You sound like you may very, very well be familiar with some of the work by Jacques Vallée,
Just a
right?
little
Like
bit. Just a little bit.
just a little bit, right?
Just a
Like
little
I
bit,
think you
yeah.
guys know where I'm going with this, right? Like that's is the first thing I think of right here is this book cover for Passport to Magonia, which if you guys in the chat haven't read it, like please, I urge you to do that. This is what I think of with this subject. Is
But
it's like it's
you know,
theater.
I would add to that, Tom. The perception that you see them is for you and specifically for you. Two people could be, you and I could both get abducted at the same time, but my view of how I see them and the view of how you see them, we might have some common grounds, but we'll have completely different perceptions. And this is what makes it really frustrating in researching this. And, Michael and I, you guys have interviewed tons of people too. You know this, that everybody will talk to you about their perspective, how they viewed it. But the thing is, our perspectives are wrong. Even I've told my account of what I've seen when I was 13. I guarantee you there's 1,000% that my remembrance of that event is skewed in the retelling of it over and over again. I've made affirmations that maybe weren't true, right? Maybe there was something else that happened that I don't recall. They showed a video once, and I think this was on a show you guys must have seen, but a gentleman is walking on a train cart as the train is moving, but you just see them standing still in the middle of the cart as it goes past you.
Right.
That's your perception. And we need to understand our perception is skewed because this experience happened. It's on a mental, emotional, spiritual level, but everything's happened physically to you. So your brain's trying to make sense of what maybe your soul already knows. And that's what people have a hard time reconciling the two. I obviously, because working with these abductees, the ships have rooms in them that have tables designed for humans to be on. The tools that come out of the wall are designed to be used on humans. This is not a cheap operation. This is a major, trillions of dollars operation to create crafts specifically for that task, right? That's crazy. So there's an interest in the individual, not the group, but it seems to follow family lines. Michael and I were fortunate enough to interview Susan Alloway with the whole team. She's winning the 2023 Case of the Year. Her event happened in 1978. Middle of a highway, her and her friend get taken. She doesn't find out till decades later it was an emergency call. They saved her life. They took her pancreas because she was having appendicitis.
Wow.
And she's in the middle of the desert and stuff like that. They made the judgment call. They intervened. And we came almost to that conclusion. All of us that studied her case and worked with her were like, holy shit, it was a medical intervention. Why?
That's crazy.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if I was monitoring a polar bear and I saw the polar bear's in distress and we assume the polar bear is going to die, it has some sort, we would move in. We've been tracking that polar bear. It's of interest to us. The polar bear doesn't know that, doesn't remember us. And that's what they're doing to us. And we need to humble ourselves down to say, this is kind of what it's like. We're being tracked and monitored.
So I'm not familiar with that case. So they've gone back later and found that her appendix has been removed, and there's no record of her having her appendix removed.
So in between her two abductions, she later found through medical records that she had been at the VA or the military hospital, complaining of pain on her right side, lower abdomen. And they were saying, okay, well, it's either hernia or she has appendicitis. I had appendicitis for a month, and I just felt sharp pains, but it didn't hurt me, didn't kill me. It wasn't until I went to the hospital, just check it out. And it's like, yeah, dude, you got full on, like it was going to burst. I had no idea. Same thing happened to her. So she had that pain while they're traveling, and all of a sudden she gets taken. Once she's brought back, 9.5 hours later, they wake up in a diner 360 kilometers away from where they were taken in the same direction they were going. Full tank of gas, still 0 kilometers at it on the car, 360 kilometers away. Her right side was killing her. And it was 1986, I think, Michael, when she went to the doctor. Yeah, she got her uterus taken out. And the doctor said, you told me you never had surgery before. She's like, I didn't. He goes, no, you lied. You had your appendix removed. But I've never seen it done like that before. It was folded in like you would a piece of chewing gum wrapper. You know how you fold it? It did that and then cauterized it. Her right ovary was then attached to it. So they'd taken the white ovary and attached to it, but that's how it healed. He had never seen that in his life. And that's when she clued in. It was an emergency situation. And they saved her life. If they hadn't done that, she wouldn't be alive today to tell her account.
So do you think it was because they saw that coming in the future, or they were monitoring her?
Monitoring her.
Monitoring sounds like
100% monitoring her.
Last name?
Alloway, Alloway. So both, we did a 2-parter, Michael and I, with her. Definitely watch it. It's called The Jackrabbits Abductions, because she first witnessed 30.
And look at Jason's art for it too. Jason drew the art for a lot of sort of parts.
Yeah,
of the
they're going to
episodes.
use it for the MUFON.
Oh, cool, cool. I
too,
that I appreciate. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
Dude,
wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a bigger case. I think equal case to Travis Walton's. And it's now coming out in the woodworks. And she gave us graciously her big interview. And we interviewed all the second, I think, interview, Michael, we had like 7 people on. So all the investigators,
a lot of the MUFON folks,
reps.
investigators,
Amazing event. And the thing is, she's but a drop in a sea of people that have had similar experiences. Like amazing, like holy crap, you'd make a movie out of it. Experiences that they'll never talk about. Their families, like her family's hearing about this for the first time. So she's sending this out to people that, her friends, family, never heard of this before. This is her finally coming out and saying, this happened to me. You guys should be aware of this. Crazy. But yeah, you're right. This phenomenon is, for me, myself, my main point of interest. And I know Michael has started to get introduced more and more to it, working with the scientific community and being on the podcast. We interview people all the time. And we all have our different opinions, but my opinion is that this is definitely happening to these people, and in large numbers. We're talking millions globally.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And those are just the ones that remember it as well.
Good point. Because
countless people will be experiencing this and not even realizing that they're experiencing it. Tom, you have an inkling that perhaps you're an abductee, but you don't have any memory of it. And let's face it, if they're doing their job properly, they don't want to get caught doing it.
Exactly.
So the ones that we're hearing about are the ones that slip through the net.
None of this makes, it doesn't make sense that someone as young as I was had a strong interest in these subjects. Like, there is no good explanation. I can remember my mom buying me VHS tapes on this subject before my brother was born. Okay. My brother was born when I was 6. I knew who Bob Lazar was. I knew about Roswell. I was pulling out books about alien abduction from the library when I'd go visit my grandparents, like literally in the first few years of me going to school. Like, that's not normal. Like, as an adult, I don't know many children that are going and doing that. So I think back to what I was doing and I'm like, that's really odd. Why was I so interested in this? And it's like, well, maybe you saw a movie. And it's like, no, because all of the movies that had anything to do with this, Close Encounters, E.T., any of that, like, the interest was already there prior to me seeing those movies because I remember all of it. It's very bizarre. That's why, and there's other things, like there's certain scars on my body. Like, there's certain things physically. I had one greatest example that I can give is like, I had a medical like scoop mark on the inside of my thigh. that just appeared basically overnight, and then like it was gone. That you know what I mean? Like, and David Jacobs and other John Mack, like a lot, there's these stories of scar tissue forming like within hours, things of that sort. Like I've woken up with nosebleeds, I mean, you name it. And I have some weird memories that should be dreams but don't feel like dreams, like they feel like memories. Yeah, there's definitely a lot there. Another reason why I want to go under hypnosis, because I will not come out and be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely an abductee without being able to recall certain things.
My experience was so weird with my regression hypnotherapy.
Yeah, which we watched.
I filmed it for the show and we played it on the show. I went under regression hypnotherapy, and that
you had something talking through him.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
It was weird.
It was a great experience though, and it took days and days to really process it. Just going to do a little bit of housekeeping here quickly. We've got 404 people watching us live.
Oh wow!
Absolutely.
Thank you to Nomad X in the chats there. I recognize him from the spaces. Love you too, man. Love you too, bro. Really appreciate you being here.
Jason and Michael.
Hang on, sorry, Paul. 1 second. Sorry, let me just finish quickly. Just doing a bit of housekeeping. We've got 405 now people watching, but most of you guys are watching on X, which is absolutely fantastic. It's really great. Thank you so much. But if you could please do us a favor after the show, just head over to our channel on YouTube and give us a little like and subscribe. Then you'll get notifications of every single time we go live and keep up to date with all of our past episodes. We interviewed Avi Loeb this week. We've had Matt Ford from the Good Trouble show on this week. We've got some great episodes from this week.
You guys have been rocking it, man. Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
The Matt Ford one was hilarious.
Yeah,
so sorry to interrupt the flow. That got showed on somebody else's podcast last night.
Isn't that good when you see your clips on other people's
stuff? It feels great.
Does
it's incredible. We made a lot of people laugh, man. That was really cool. That was really cool.
Not Stephen Greenstreet.
No, they were not happy. You mean Greenwald?
Sorry, Greenwald. Sorry.
Yeah, he was very mad at Matt.
Yeah, he was very mad at Matt.
I think they should just go out for a drink.
Say that. Paul, you were going to say something, and then we're going to move on to the Ryan Graves and Jaime Mousson story.
So for Jason and Michael, I'm curious because I love getting people's perspective on this. There's so many theories out there as far as what the actual phenomena is. As far as NHI or dimensional or ET or cryptoterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials, there's a bunch of them. Which one do you guys lean towards? What is your and I know it changes. Mine changes every 2 weeks, but what do you into now?
Jason, do you want to go first?
Do you know what? I would 4 years of doing this almost daily. I still have no flipping clue. It's a mystery because the thing is there are common denominators. There are some things that are repeatable. But in science, you got to be able to repeat the experiment to be able to observe it and then make your thesis or ideas, whatever. We can't replicate it with any of these things, which is really frustrating. We know what happens. It's kind of like saying, somebody sneezes for the first time and the whole clan's like, what's that? I don't know. Can you do it again? No, I can't. Like there's certain things you can't reproduce. And I think that's the problem that we face, because now we're dealing with something that is not only out of our realm of existence. And, I'm just saying, I'm not saying extraterrestrial, that's within our realm of existence. But if you're looking at interdimensional, we might not be able to go to that dimension. We're just not built for that. So we have to humble ourselves and say, okay, here's where we are. We're kind of like, microscopic, bacteria. We could be observed, they could interact with us, but we can't do the same to them. And that might be the situation that we're in. That's why the 3-body problem and stuff like that is that it's weird for us. We have to go through it. There's nothing we could do, and it's messed up. And maybe that's the scary part of disclosure. I think that you can't admit to people that, look, we're at the bottom of the totem pole, and it looks like we're staying here for quite some time. That's discouraging, right? Because look, we're creatures of habits. As long as I got food in my fridge, electricity, watch Netflix, and I go to work, I'm fine. But you take that out of the equation, what happens to us every single time? You see it across the world. We go back to the ways we used to be, primitive. And we do that. Like, who's to say that we didn't do that in the past, that we weren't elevated to a point where again, crap hit the fan and we just reverted back to our primitive ways. And that's maybe what consciousness is finally saying, grow the hell up, like stop doing that, move on from that.
I think I wonder, and this is an idea that's playing on my mind more and more, is what if we are like the three-dimensional shadow of fifth dimensional being, or what if we are living, what if we are fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional beings, and we are in a simulation, but we're connected to something external. So we're seeing UFOs, we don't know how to visualize them. There's something else, and our brains, our minds here in this existence are giving them a 3D representation, which is why everybody sees something different. It's your brain explaining it.
Do you mean like a Plato's cave scenario, or are you talking about?
Oh, the allegory of the cave.
Yeah.
Straight over my head.
Oh,
far too simple for all that.
Paul, I like you. You should talk more.
Yeah.
Talk more, Paul.
It could be the stagehands too, right? That occasionally the play goes on, but once in a while you see one of the stagehands, or the curtain is lifted, you're brought backstage. Like, you know, it's an analogy, but maybe that's the way reality is, that when you're plucked out of your reality. You're brought into something that's like, holy crap, the curtains got revealed, and then you're put back. Like, how are you supposed to go on after that? You know, it's a play, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing is, if we go back to Michael and Tom, your DMT experiences, if we are to look at DMT experiences and say, well, that puts us in a different plane of existence, we're able to experience something different. Does it really have the ability to take our mind and our soul and transport that to another plane of existence for us to experience that? Or is it more likely that it breaks down our connection to what we have here and allow us to see where we already are anyway?
I think that second one is the better, is the more likely explanatory
So
paradigm.
we're already there. So we're just stuck in a 3D representation.
It switches the channel. Andrew Gallimore was talking about this in his interview. He was on the Concrete podcast, now has a different name, but he was saying that basically, you know, there are hallucinogens that will overlay things on reality. DMT changes the reality channel. Like, it literally takes everything that you're experiencing and witnessing, and it washes it away and replaces it with something absurd. Like, and you see things that when you come back here, like, you know, you experienced them, but it will give you a headache and make your brain itch, and you can't scratch it because it's underneath your skin. These things that you know you experienced, but you can't describe them to people the right way. It's like when Morpheus says, you know, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. Like, that really applies to this. Like,
because
I can only do it so much justice, right?
Yeah.
It's I can't sit here and do it the justice it truly deserves. It'll never work.
Yeah,
it just won't.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm just curious, Michael and Tom, like, DMT, when you say you see things, is that like in your head, or do you see visually?
It's highly visual.
It's visual.
Okay.
It's multi-sensory. It's you know, there's a lot of different ways in which people use the term hallucination. You can have serious mental disorders and hallucinate really elaborate things and believe that they're there. Those are delusional hallucinations, where you can't distinguish what you're hallucinating from what's actually in your actual perceptual environment. That's not what DMT does to you. You're not under the impression that there's a rabbit in your living room that you could pet that is just a normal rabbit, right? It's somewhat different. So probably everybody who's never done a really intense hallucinogen like DMT has a really bad misconception about the nature of the experience itself. It's not insanity. It's not just something popping up and thinking, oh, there's a cartoon in my living room or whatever. It's much deeper and more intellectually engaging than that. It's impossible to explain without actually experiencing the thing. But everybody should look up Andrew Gallimore's work, because he's brilliant and he's a real scientist. He's developed a protocol that allows people to trip on DMT instead of for 7 minutes for like 4 hours, and they stay in this DMT space and engage with
the one that's mapping
the entities that are there.
Yes.
He's part of that group. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Paul, you asked the question about what sort of paradigm or theory we lean towards, and I I'll give you sort of a two-faced answer. One is I'll tell you exactly what theory I don't lean toward, and that's the ET hypothesis. I don't think it explains enough of the weirdness of all of these phenomena. And I think it's probably too convenient. It too conveniently uses a set of categories and tropes that are just familiar to us from watching sci-fi and things. I mean, like, sci-fi from the 1950s involves aliens from other planets coming here in fancy cars that can fly, right? And to say that, oh, that's the explanation for what we're seeing, I think is suspiciously convenient, and it's just grabbing the kind of most proximate an easy answer that we have. I would be really disappointed if it were ET, and I don't think it would explain everything. The second part of my answer is I think whatever the actual explanation is something that we don't yet have the concepts for. We'll need some sort of paradigm of understanding physics and consciousness and social organization and religion and things that we currently don't have in order to understand these things. I mean, to give an example, we tend to imagine that, like, as a technological civilization grows, that it takes control of more and more and larger aspects of reality. We almost never think about how technological civilizations grow to take greater control and more nimble control over smaller parts of reality. So we think of technological civilizations expanding to become these multi-galactic empires, right? But we almost never really think about the fact that they would also expand downward and
like inner space.
And ingrain themselves into smaller dimensions. I mean, you can. I think it's plausible that there are advanced forms of life that have sort of seeded and ingrained themselves into some level of reality so refined and small that they're more like laws of physics now. They might not have physical location or something, and that might be a better explanation of what they are. They might be able to simultaneously occupy any perceptual point in the entire universe because they don't really have any sort of like physical constraints on themselves or something. They might not have a form that we could ever perceive. So in order to interact with us, they might have to always manufacture some kind of body or something, which might be why it's always theater, because it just necessarily has to be for us to perceive it. But I think that whatever the explanation is, it's going to be something that we have to learn a whole new set of concepts to even cash out.
Lexicon, right?
You need new language for this too. This reminds me of Jacques Vallée had said at one point that he feels that this intelligence has the ability to operate within like a single frame of Planck time. And it's interesting because if you were to like essentially, minimize yourself down to like maybe the quantum, that becomes conceivable at that point because of the fact that you're on that ultra macro, or excuse me, ultra micro as opposed to the macro. I've thought about this too. It's like, well, what if the reason we can't find some of them isn't because of how far away they are, but it's because of how small they are? Like, what if they're a civilization that has the ability to like live on the head of a pin type deal? Like, what if they also have the technology to expand to our size where they are now visible to us? It'd be like if an atom was like, well, I want to hang out with the humans today, and it just blew itself up, and now you have an orb, like a glowing orb. Like,
you're not entirely wrong there, Tom, because people have described. We were talking to Richard Dolan, and he was mentioning about somebody stepped into a craft that's like 40 feet, 50 feet maybe in diameter. He steps in; it's the size of a football stadium.
Right?
How is that possible? Right?
Doctor Who.
Like that's the thing.
Bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Exactly.
Incredible.
And you think about this, you're like, this is the part where if you were to say it, like just verbally to somebody, they would look at you like you're crazy, because verbally it sounds insane and impossible until you're there. But what I'm interested in is the fact is that how much consciousness do you really possess? Because the thing is, if they know where you are, they could find you at any point in time and then just shut you down, take you whenever they want. How much control do you really have over this body? The only thing they can affect really is maybe your consciousness. Now, as much as I love the nuts and bolts of the technology of these things, imagine their consciousness level. Imagine how insane that is. Even talked to Susan Alloway. She was just thinking to herself, I'd like to touch it. And it replied to her, go ahead, touch me. It is in your mind the entire time. It reads your emotions, your thoughts, but it's not, it's not evil. It's not done out of maliciousness. It's that they want to understand how you're feeling for some reason. Like if they were evil, they wouldn't care. Right? Like us, for instance, when we go out there, our drones are going to pick up something from its house, dissect it somewhere else, and then just discard the body in space. That's what we're going to do. They don't do that. They put you right back into your room, back into bed or your car or whatever. So to me, I think, okay, why is that? There's a sympathy. There's a link between us. We just got to figure out what that link is. But if it was purely evil, purely on their end, they wouldn't have saved Travis Walton when his friends bolted out on him. They wouldn't have rescued him.
Is that a spiritual aspect of it, do you think? Is it
100%.
Okay.
100%. They probably don't see you the way we see each other. We only see our bodies. They probably see everything about you. So if you're a spiritual person, they see your spirit. They see your mind. They never go after psychopaths or sociopaths. Ever.
That is
it's always people that are love animals. Animals love them. They're creative sorts. Those are the people that get selected. There's no psychopath that's ever been like, yeah, I killed.
He literally just described me without knowing me. Like Digby knows, I have a very strong connection to
every
animals.
single one does that, just like that. The animals love them. They're creative. They have an ability.
That's me.
Most of us, musicians.
That's me.
Every single one. Yeah, painter.
Michael clearly has
Speaking of animals, look who just showed up. Oh,
yeah, Michael. Michael's a favorite.
Hello, kitty.
This is Maggie. She is a psychopath.
Yeah,
of course she's a cat. Oh,
by nature.
My dog's downstairs. Otherwise, I'd bring him on. But Jet's a good boy. He'll make an appearance sometime soon.
Look at that dog.
That's my
Hello, puppy.
I can't tell.
I've also got a Springer Spaniel, and I also came back from the beach today with a puppy.
I can't even see animals like in distress. Like, like when they play the commercials with like the sad puppies, and like I have to shut it off. Like I can't.
Impossible to masturbate to those.
Oh my God.
Right, somebody just.
I'd have a better chance doing that with The View.
Now, aren't you? Right. Dildos on Wednesday, masturbation on Sunday.
You have to have like a shit post hour. Like I think that might be a good idea.
Do you guys know?
Laugh a little bit.
Do you guys know this idea of panpsychism? Is that like in like vocabulary? Maybe
I know what you're talking about.
So panpsychism is this sort of old, very ancient framework for thinking of consciousness. Is like there's really one great mind that we all kind of participate in. We're all kind of like sectioned off lobes of mental activity that are actually part of a greater thing. And our current experience, you currently experience a kind of like cordoned off globe of consciousness that is part of something greater, and that greater consciousness also experiences what you do, but you've got kind of blinders on or something. I think that might be a helpful framework for at least starting to think about how consciousness might fit into these experiences of beings that seem to come from some other place, that people have these abduction experiences or whatever, and wondering why there's any sort of sympathy or resonance or whatever between totally alien consciousnesses. It might be that at some fundamental level we share a consciousness, and it's like, why are you sympathetic towards me? Well, because on the deepest level I am you. And I think probably that's what death is.
Before the Big Bang was consciousness, right? Yeah. Before the Big Bang was consciousness. Big Bang happens. We're all from the consciousness source, but we all spread out, and we're just reminding ourselves, hey, we're from the same place with the same goal in mind. We just gotta, over time means nothing really. Except for us, it's linear, and it goes by so fast. But like who knows? And I think that's the type of thinking. I mean, that's a very woo-woo, and I tried to avoid for the longest time, but I cannot.
Yeah, it's impossible.
No, it's impossible. And even having you on, Michael, even having that philosopher like you, several times you'd be like, "Yeah, that's a good point," but have you thought of this? I'm like, yeah, I didn't. And we all have biases, and it's hard to point your own biases because you're biased, right? You need somebody else to show you actually. Exactly. You need somebody else to go, actually, you always eliminate this. And we have to start doing that. Like Jacques Vallée, I was lucky enough to talk with him on the 2nd-year anniversary. And at the end, we asked, what would you give us investigators as knowledge going forward? And he simply said, reserve judgment.
Right.
And just that, those 2 words, reserve judgment. You don't know. There's no absolutes. And stating absolutes is then basically starting a religion. And we have that going on. And Stephen Greer, unfortunately, it's a religion. It's you pay to play. And unfortunately, ufology is going towards that direction. Many of you guys, have had a plethora of awesome guests on the show. And the people whose heart is really there will come on the show, no problem. But I've had it where, you reach people that are like, yeah, I want $1,000 for an hour of your time.
Oh,
because $1,000, dude, I'm a podcaster in Canada.
Come on, man.
Like, yeah,
Right,
this was like big names. I'm like, what the hell? So
let's buy the truth.
Yeah, exactly. You want me for, like I don't make a killing off of podcasts on YouTube. I'll tell you that. But it's the source, it's the heart. Is it coming from the right place? And I often say, like, it's Ross Coulthard. We need to be behind him, 100%. The amount of people that are against him, that are working against him in the background is crazy. He's got to fight, man. But he's like Mike Tyson. He'll take a swing. He doesn't care. But we got to back him up. And when he needs us, we need to be there because we're always going to get that pushback, right?
Yeah,
so,
speaking of having people's backs, I'm just going to bring this video in now. Tom needs to go off for his Easter dinner. By the way, none of us said Happy Easter to all of you.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Happy Easter.
Digby, if I may, really quickly, that book that I was displaying, that's The Field by Lynn McTaggart, it very much lines up with what Michael was talking about, with this idea of everybody kind of being connected to this one central consciousness field. This book had a huge influence on my thinking as far as trying to figure out the mechanisms of consciousness, what it might really be. Non-locality. There's a lot of great people that were involved with this book. Edgar Mitchell, like it's one of my favorites. It was given to me by a friend of mine. Her mother gave it to me. That along with A Course in Miracles. So I've read both. Really, just it's interesting stuff. That book, though, The Field, lines up exactly with the idea that, hey, maybe we're just down here for individuality, and that there really is just this one either central mind or central like hub frequency, or as they call it, field, this field that we're hooked up to. It's like the giant internet of consciousness, so to speak. It's fascinating. I highly recommend it.
Nice.
So as we were just saying about supporting people in this community, and I think it is really important to get behind people and support them like Ross. There's a video going around this week drawing Ryan Graves's credibility or his story into question this week, because he has stated previously that he didn't know about the mummies and the Mexican UAP hearing beforehand. Well, that's not quite true, actually. He found out moments before, but the video has come out of him speaking to Jaime Maussan, which I'm just going to bring in now, and we can talk over it. I'll just turn the volume down on it a bit. But he's talking here. You can clearly see that this is moments before the hearing. They're all dressed up, ready for the hearing. Ryan's sitting there looking pretty damn uncomfortable. I mean, there's probably nail marks in the side of that armchair that he's sitting in.
Yeah.
But this is where Jaime's explaining to him.
He investigated. He was also the forensic expert for the Navy for many years now. He's not. He's above that. He's the one who's going to talk about these creatures that were alive 1,000 years ago. These were not from a crash. They live with people, and they were buried.
I mean, you can see the discomfort on Ryan's face.
He's not saying or doing anything.
What is he supposed to say?
Exactly.
He doesn't know much.
He doesn't know anything about it. Yeah.
But this is now being used against him this week, saying, "Oh, Ryan Graves is lying because he said he didn't know beforehand, and he did." It's like he didn't. This is at the hearing, and it's
the
being
official
used
story
by
was
some
he
people.
found out right before, but that's all. But
it's
he only
being
knew so
twisted.
much. Like
It's
all he
being-
heard about. Yeah, go ahead, Digby. I'm sorry.
It's being twisted now, and to use it against him. And these are from people within our community that are supposed to be working for our community, and
It's
that
Duck
really
Hunt.
upsets me.
Remember Duck Hunt from Nintendo?
Yeah. I still have
every time every time there's a whistleblower, if you can find any reason to shoot him down, do it.
a
You
shame.
know what? I find it so dishonest though that he did that to him moments before they go on stage, because one, it has nothing to do with him, but they're using his, I'm going to say popularity here for lack of a better word, but he's popular within. So they're trying to use him to boost that the relativity of their story. And I think that was like super dishonest. And I could understand from Ryan's point of view, like if they did that to me, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, I'm not endorsing this. Like,
Well,
I know
they're
nothing.
just telling them about it.
They're-
That's
they're
it. That's all that's
blasting Ryan.
happening.
Yeah, they're saying, oh, well, Ryan did know about it, and he still went on. So they're trying to like discredit Ryan. I'm like, well, this guy is so.
He had his own
legit.
presentation that he was doing.
Yeah,
He's already
absolutely.
signed up to do this. Like he's committed.
Flew
to
out there,
Right.
you know,
Doing
spend
it.
money. Right?
Yeah,
How
for
is that
sure.
difficult for like how is that difficult to see, right? Like if I am at a convention, right, and I put together a presentation on like being morphologies or something of that sort, right? And then like 10 minutes beforehand, somebody comes up to me and tells me about their presentation. That's their present. That's got nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. Listen, guys, it's Easter Sunday, obviously. I've actually never had to do this on the show before, but family dinner, the timing is the timing. So I'm dipping out just a little bit early, but Jason, Michael, thank you so much for coming on, man. This has actually been one of my favorite conversations that we've ever had on this show.
Oh, wow.
I cannot wait to go back and listen to this. I'm going to clip the hell out of it, put music on it, make it epic, make people really listen to it. And you guys have one of my favorite shows.
Tom, I have to say, you are like Tom Speed 2 today. You're like,
I like that,
bang,
right?
bang,
It's like
bang, bang,
Tom Mark
Murray.
2, kind of like Deep Purple. I like it.
Tom,
I like it a
This
lot.
episode was brought to you by DMT.
That's right.
I mean, Tom could have literally done the show by himself today. I think.
I told you I needed a
You've been, like,
reset, man. I
firing
wasn't
all-
myself. I told you. I was like, something's wrong here. I need to do a reset. I did the reset. Now I feel like myself again. The cylinders are firing. It just, I love all you guys here, man. This community is amazing. UFO Twitter week has been crazy. And we're going to be doing a space 9 o'clock my time because I got to give myself some time to get back from dinner. And if Digby's there, hopefully he will be. But Digby, I know it's be kind of
1
late.
a.m. again.
To close out
I'll-
UFO
I'll
Twitter
be
week,
there.
I'm only going to do it for like an hour. But
it's like a
thanks.
James Bond thing for you, Digby. You know, 1 a.m. You know, in Morocco, just martini. I'm just saying.
I'm going to open with the Bond theme tune. Can we do that?
Shaken, not stirred?
Love it. Love it.
With the beginning of the beginning of the space. Well, no, literally since the wife and kids went back to England for a couple of weeks, I've literally seemed to have moved on to East Coast time. So I seem to be going to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 11. So I'm sure I'll be there. I'm sure I'll be there.
I'm going to check out the Susan Alloway episode,
Sure.
as we drive to where we're going for dinner and back.
Fantastic story, man. I'll
I cannot
raise
wait.
The hair on your arms, dude. Like
It was when you were
fantastic.
talking about it. I'm like, they did what? I'm so excited to hear it. But guys, we got to do this again sometime soon.
For sure, anytime.
Your show is one of my favorites. You guys are out here killing it. I genuinely appreciate your time today, man. Seriously.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for having us, man. Happy Easter.
And much love to the chat. Happy Easter, Digby, Paul, and everybody. I'll see you guys obviously on the next episode, and we'll see you in the space tonight. Digby and Paul, I'm sure you guys can steer the ship in my absence. I know it's
Well,
a
I think
difficult path.
it's getting towards that time anyway now, really. We've been on for an hour and 45 minutes. I think that brings us to a good little conclusion for our Easter Sunday episode, really.
We didn't even get into our OnlyFans account, Michael.
If they don't already watch you, which I'm sure that they do,
we'll post it in the
but where
description.
can everybody find you both?
Well, you can find UAP Studies podcast everywhere. We did start a new channel on YouTube a couple of months ago, so the numbers are not where we were before, but man, people are finding us again, which is really great. We're always on Spotify. We apologize to everybody who was on Apple before. We did lose our Apple account. Michael and I've been working on that. Actually, Michael sent me a phone from the States, but I'm having so much issues with the FedEx guys to try to put this back on. It's just a nightmare. But yeah, you can find Michael and I there, or you could contact us on Twitter as well. You can always reach out to us at uapstudiespodcast@gmail.com if you want to contact us. And Michael, go ahead. I'll let you mention your stuff.
Yeah, Michael Glosson on Twitter. You're welcome to follow me. I don't do a lot else other than that in the podcast that's public facing. But you're welcome to contact me and just tell me what you're into, and tell me I don't look
UFOs,
like
not kinks, right?
Michael. Oh, I mean, yeah, we'll talk about anything. Like,
3:00 in the morning, not a
Tell
problem.
me I don't look like Michael Moore.
Do not question my open-mindedness. I'm ready for whatever conversation.
And what's your OnlyFans account? What's your OnlyFans address?
No, but I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Michael
for the
Moore
OnlyFans.
at OnlyFans. I don't know.
It's-
I don't
I'm
even
planning
know.
on doing
Michael
that
Moore.
for
Just look up
April
Michael.
1st. Boys are now on OnlyFans, and I'll post it up tomorrow just to see the reaction of people. But I just thought it was so funny. It must be really hurting if they're on OnlyFans.
Maybe that's where we're all going wrong. Maybe we should move all of our shows onto OnlyFans. It would make killer money.
It'll be like the New York
I could
Times.
undo a
All you
button,
ufologists
you
going
know?
on OnlyFans. Yeah.
I can't get back to scripted.
Start making some money.
Yeah. All right, Lindsay gave us $15.
I'm gonna have to swap my shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. Just
Man,
you
this
wait
wasn't-
till we get super chats on this show. It's going to go wrong.
Oh, it's got to go straight through the roof. Call us back. We'll make sure you get your money's worth.
People pay to talk shit.
Yeah. This was fun, guys. It really was.
Yeah, it's a great time,
Definitely
guys.
fun,
So
man.
glad. Oh,
Let's throw
okay.
a
Well,
speculation station.
oh yes. Let's throw this in. Go on then.
Speculation station.
Oh, I was just gonna Paul. You read my mind.
Are we not
I got
already in the
part.
speculation station? Are we going further?
No,
than just-
yeah, I know, right? This is the
That
end
was
of the
just
show
warm-up,
where we turn around to our guests that have been on the show this week. And Tom, if you do need to duck out, please just it's fine. But this is where we turn to our guests and say, if you had to leave our viewers with one thought to ponder over for the rest of the week, what thought would you give them, or what idea would you give them?
And I get no prep time.
No.
I just got to pull that thought right out of
That's
my.
the point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just pull it out.
Ooh, flash speculation.
Y'all can
my-
each do one too if you want.
Yeah, Jason, do you have an immediate speculative thought that you want to leave everybody with?
All 512 people that are watching.
Oh, yeah.
live.
I'm rolling because I can hear them. So much love.
bye,
guys.
dude.
See you later. I would say that not to rely on anybody in the field as the expert. There's no such thing as an expert. Everybody's
I like
a student. Everybody's a student. And as long as you approach this phenomenon with, I'm a student, not a master, your ego won't inflate. And I think we've been doing that on the podcast, is that it's not about our egos. It's not about us. I think we're fallible people. We have issues. But the subject and the approach to it needs to be the same. We all need to be students and humble and help each other out. Like teamwork to make the dream work.
I like that. And, there's a lot of that in the community as well, is that people jump on people. Well, you said this, you believe that. And it's just like, we're all just on a journey, and we're all trying to find, we don't even know what the goal of the journey is. You don't even know where the end point of the journey is. We're all finding things out. I mean, I look back at posts I made a year ago and think, oh my God, what was I thinking? And it's just be kind to each other and remember, especially now, there's a lot of people coming to this subject that haven't been in it before with the UAP hearings in Congress and everything. The interest has ramped up. So just be kind and remember that everybody's on the same journey. And I would be ware of the people who actually are out there saying that they are the experts, that they do know everything, and that you must listen to them. Those are the ones.
They're
we need
the
to-
one that's going to reveal everything to the world, right?
like a certain SG.
Yeah. Good,
Actually,
good
there's a few SGs. but
Yeah, a few SGs.
I've got my speculation then. Okay, so I'm going to go in a completely different direction since we're talking about how to
Yes.
treat each other, right? I'm interested in this concept called moral fictions, where it's like we're not sure what's true, but what's the most morally useful thing to believe. So here, I'll leave you with a moral fiction that I've been pondering lately. We don't know what happens after we die, but here's a useful way to think about it. After you die, you have to relive your life completely, but not through your own perspective. You have to relive the experience everybody ever had with you in person. Every person that you've ever treated kindly or unkindly, you will experience exactly the effect that you had on them. And all the unkind people in the world will find that they're unkind, but all the kind people in the world who've sat and constantly thought of themselves as a little too rotten will find that they're a lot kinder and deeper and warmer than they ever thought that they were. And I think that's probably true for everyone. Your experience will be an inversion of your current self-conception, but I found that thought really helpful for guiding my interactions with people over the past few weeks. I'll leave you with that. Yeah.
I think
My
that was
speculation
fantastic.
about the afterlife.
That was beautiful, Michael.
That
Way
was
to outshine me.
Round of
My
applause.
that was good.
Yeah.
Snaps. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jason,
exactly.
I bet you're so glad you went first. You didn't have to
Yeah,
follow me.
exactly. Can't follow that. Yeah, that's crazy.
That
Wow.
was probably
Deep-
the best
deep
one we've ever had.
Philosopher, right there. Yeah.
Sound clip for you. Throw that on.
Philosophy. Yeah.
Throw that on your OnlyFans or whatever.
And smoke it.
Shirt. Yeah.
I know, I've still got my shirt open.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, got the music playing in the background. Anyway, on that sexual note, we'll end the show here. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Had a great
And
time.
if you are watching, please make sure you like and subscribe both our channel and UAP Studies wherever you decide to get your podcasts. So from me, from Paul, from Michael, from Jason, and Tom, who's already left, I bid you all farewell and a very, very happy Easter.